All right, guys, welcome. How you guys doing today? Last day? Anybody working off some hangovers from last night? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Still hungover. That's okay.
We got an honest one. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming. We got those of you who are here. If you want to tweet about us, hit us up with these hashtags and get some tweets going. Let's kick this thing off. All right.
Hey,
yeah,
good.
That's what we do. All right. So we got a deal. We all retweet each other's tweets. All right. So we are going to talk about how our customer here, who I'm going to save for a little bit before we do a formal introduction, is using Workspace really to drive business growth cost effectively, but really just how they're using it. Right. We're going to talk about exactly their use cases, what they're doing, how they got started, what the future looks like, what the past looks like, really kind of dig into it. So if you pay attention, we'll, at the end, we'll open up the mic if you have any questions to dig into what they're going, tips and tricks. And I'm here with my esteemed colleague, Jacob. He's my brains. So he says I have one joke, and that joke is I'm here to look good, and he's here to answer all the hard questions.
You have two jokes. So hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks, Josh. My name's Jacob Brutsky. I am also on the technical marketing team. My focus is networking, all of the networking, ADC and SD-WAN, but I did come from consulting, so I do know the whole stack pretty well. And I will forewarn you, we will use some of the old names, and it's okay. It's okay, I promise. So you will hear NetScaler and ZenApp and maybe even MetaFrame. So
all right, let's do it. All right, so I'm just going to set the stage here, and then we'll get to Bob. So this is Citrix's view of what is required to create a full functioning workspace. The apps and desktops, SaaS apps, content collaboration, endpoint management, apps catalog, secure access, visibility, and consistent user experience. This is like the whole package put together. This is when we have a full workspace. But we're all going through this transformation, and we see, like in the keynote, right, where the keynote is really on the edge, right? It's like what's brand new, where things are going, what's the new thing look like. But in reality, the majority of our customers have been apps and desktops customers for a long time, and we can't just flip the switch and be the brand new version of Citrix in one day. So that takes a journey, right? There's a transformation there. And everybody is on that journey in a different stage, in a different way, is tackling that problem differently. A big part of my job is speaking to customers like Bob about their experiences and how the products are working for them and what they're doing for the marketing side and to feed that back into the product. And we're hearing this is that we can't just flip the switch, right? We got to figure out this journey. We got to make this transition. And one of the common things that comes up is the concept of technical debt, and how we really manage the moving from just trying to keep the environment running, just trying to keep things going and heads down. All I'm doing here is trying to keep the environment running and the business running, to slowly moving and getting into that place where the IT department can innovate and can change and can start to move the infrastructure forward and to update and to upgrade and do all of these things that we're talking about in this digital transformation. And with that, I'm going to let my friend Bob introduce himself and the company he works for. Go ahead, Bob.
Hello, my name's Bob Bolger, and let me start. I'm not a professional speaker. I'm kind of like a cross-eyed shot putter. I don't set any records, but I can keep the crowd alert. So with that, I'm just a geek that uses Citrix technology. I've been using Citrix technology for 20 years. So he mentioned some old terms. It was actually WinFrame.
it's okay.
In the time. I had some philosophies when I used Citrix technology, and it's basically one, trying to set your attitude right to be successful. One, I always went in there, there's not a single app that couldn't be virtualized. That was the attitude. That doesn't mean every app can be virtualized. You go, oh, he's crazy. There are some things you probably shouldn't do because it's just not worth the cost or effort. But that kind of goes into the technical debt piece, which we'll talk about in a bit. The other thing is take advantage of professional services and align yourself with a partner, an integrator. Those philosophies have helped us at CooperVision be very successful in the transition. So we are one of the largest manufacturer of soft contact lenses. We're in over 100 different countries. And with that, we're a medical device manufacturing industry, and that's what drives us. IT doesn't drive. I'm an enabler. About 5 years ago, CooperVision came up with, we want to get computing out of our distribution centers or manufacturing out of our or sales office and bring them into the data center so we could then go to the cloud, the big buzzword, to the cloud. At the same time, mobile devices started to become a problem for us because as technology, we had a lot of mobile devices out there. We have contractors and so on that needed access to our environment with their mobile devices. So we needed an MDM solution as well. So when we looked at Citrix, we had little pockets of Zen Desktop, 5.6, some 6.5, some acquisitions. So there was just a sporadic. So we changed our licensing model to go to the workspace and took advantage of all the products that was in there. During that transition, I'm going to mostly focus on the Zen Desktop piece right now. So,
well, but before you get in there, can you tell us about your career before CooperVision and how you've gotten started with Citrix and how you've been working with Citrix?
Right. So I worked at another company, a financial services company, a payroll company, and that's where I really did most of my Citrix work. At that company there, we published 2,000 published applications.
Wow.
It was our #1 application delivery engine for us there. And that's kind of where the philosophy is. There wasn't anything that couldn't be published.
Right.
And the purpose of that was, and when the payroll company was, is we were in a data center model. We had basically 2 data centers, and then what we called, 2 hot and a cold.
Okay.
And Citrix helped us take desktop-centric applications and put them in a data center and give us that the way to get compute from out of the edge.
Right. And then so when CooperVision brought you on, what was the state there, and what was your mandate coming on to CooperVision, and how long have you been with CooperVision?
You mentioned 5.6, you mentioned 6, 6.5, and usually with mergers and acquisitions, there tend to be a lot of disparate, disjointed farms all over the place, and so it can be a little tricky. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so I could kind of answer both.
Yeah.
So they brought me on 2 years ago after they made the decision with the product, and they started to go down that journey, but they were struggling a little bit because they didn't necessarily manage themselves. They said, we'll start outsourcing a lot of this and do it in little pieces as the business upgrades would happen and so on. And what they found is because they didn't put the effort in right away, Citrix doesn't work.
Right.
That's bad user experience, not good planning. Not any fault of the contractors that were used sometimes because they don't know the business, right? They just said, here's a set of apps, move them, and so on. So when they brought me in, the mandate is you got to change the attitude here at CooperVision that Citrix is the right way to go and why we're doing it. And so giving an example, one of the things I did early at CooperVision is basically just rebranded storefront. The manager came in, the director says, he showed me the queue, and all the tickets said, Citrix problem, the Citrix app, but nothing about what was wrong with the app or any details, because the end user just says, hey, can't open Citrix or whatever, which we've all heard and seen, and that's not new news. But by rebranding receiver, or storefront here, and receiver, it totally changed the conversation. The tickets that said Citrix is broke got cut in half within a month. The same number of tickets came in, so don't get me wrong. It wasn't that we got rid of problems. All we did was change the conversation. Now the tickets came in and it said, EPM, when I launch, I get a Java error. It's an EPM issue, not a Citrix issue. It totally disarmed the user saying, because when they saw the Citrix commercial on the storefront and the receiver critter, that's what they said, oh, that's why it's broke. So the director came in, he goes, well, what'd you do? And I said, all I did is change the look and feel and change, this is CooperVision's apps.
Right.
Not Citrix apps.
Right.
And that's just one simple thing that started changing the attitude why we could start moving the applications from our distribution centers and put them in our data center.
And that I think even goes back to, if you look at like P and Agent, right? And that was one of the mistakes I think we made as a company was we put Citrix right there in the corner rather than the name of the application, so that, to echo your point, is all the tickets would come in and it's a problem with Citrix. So that's neither here nor there. But so the multiple disparate farms, right? I think to talk a little bit about technical debt, one of the nice things about the versions of Storefront and the versions of XenApps and Desktop, now Apps and Desktops, is that there's a lot of backwards compatibility, right? So you can be on kind of a very new edition, but then still have some of those older. So I would imagine that in your case, you probably had maybe a 7.6 farm, and then also a 6.5 and maybe even a 4.x or a 5.x of Zen Desktop. But Storefront is able to enumerate all those, and so that kind of helps you.
That's a true story. As I speak now, we no longer have any 6.5 or 5.6. That was part of getting to, so we use 7.15, a long-term service release.
Okay.
But talk about technical debt. As we started moving to apps, we're about 90% way through migrating all the apps using the Citrix. And we also have about 1,000 desktops, virtual desktops. But virtual desktops, for us, we found was overkill for most cases. The people didn't need the desktop, they wanted an app. And they said, oh, well, this is how I get to this Java app or whatever. So we also started getting rid of the virtual desktops and just publishing the app to the end users. But what happened is you move along at some of these apps, you inherit the junk from that app. Citrix can't fix legacy apps. Give you an example, I have 2 distribution centers in Europe, one in the UK and one in Belgium, and they're using a very old version of what they call Red Prairie 2005, which is a distribution inventory software, and they're on an upgrade cycle, but they're last in our upgrade cycle, which means this app has to live another 5 years. Well, it runs on Windows XP and Windows 2003. And because of security concerns, we had to get rid of all the Windows XP physical devices in this warehouse. And right away they say, Bob, you can move everything, but you can't move Red Prairie because technical debt. XP, Citrix won't support it, all this. So what I did there was I made one small 7.6 farm because it still supports the VDA 5.6. Made a pool of non-persistent Windows XP desktops, put the Red Prairie app on that, and published the app, and was able to put it into our storefront. The same delivery engine as all the other things are on 7.15. And that also got the last of that type of application out of our warehouse and brought it to our data center. And it was not without an effort.
Sure. Right.
But to answer your question, that's some of the things that Citrix has had done for us. Now, we'll probably keep that 7.6 farm for a period of time until we can get Red Prairie upgraded to something a little more modern.
Maybe Red Prairie 2018 rather than 2005.
It's called JDA now. And JDA is another app that we publish. But back to IT doesn't drive Cooper Vision. I get a set of problems every day.
Sure.
My director says, I don't want them to put it in that building over there. Figure out how to put it in our data center. And the reason that is because in the next 5 years from now, we are looking to get out of the brick and mortar business for hardware. We're starting to look at AWS, things of that nature, where we're going to move our workloads to the cloud as well as taking advantage of Workspace, putting the control plane in the cloud. But to do that, we had to first get everything out of the edge, put it into a data center model, which then makes it portable to the cloud, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you mentioned non-persistent XP. That sounds to me like maybe a provisioning services or a MCS maybe. Do you guys use any of those technologies for imaging?
We use PVS a little bit for the desktops. Servers, we have a different provision. We're a VMware shop, and again, it's like religion with certain technicians.
Sure.
So we leveraged the process that was already in place.
Okay. Right.
And with 7.x and what have you, you're still able to install the VDA and support that method that works best for you. Good stuff.
And then, so how is that move? How's that initiative from the edge to the data center gone for you guys? Can you talk about that experience and some of the challenges and how you overcame them in doing that?
So some of the challenges is technology can't fix human behavior.
True.
I'll give you an example. We had this one person, a woman, who pretty much does one job for this office, and we moved their apps to Citrix, and the phone call came in saying she couldn't do her job. Couldn't do her job. And then, long story short, she has an accounting app that she opens every day, and she said, the app's gone. The app is missing, the app's gone. When we asked her, well, why is it gone? Because every day when I come in the morning, I log into the PC and it's right here.
Right, yeah.
It's right here in this corner. I came in this morning, it's not there. Even though we communicated with the, look and receiver, the icon's even the same, it even says what it is. But that's what I'm saying is, in some cases, the biggest problem wasn't doing the migration or moving to Citrix, it was just human behavior. People say, I want to do business this way.
Process changes.
Process change. The other issue that we have, and we're still tackling, is unstructured data. So you move the published app to a data center, but they want to save some report, or they have some Excel spreadsheet with links in it, or they have something there that they want to home run back to their laptop or to their PC, and then becomes a performance issue. Citrix is slow because the app is in the data center, close to the database in this case, if it's an Oracle. But their process to home run that to their own Excel spreadsheet now is 4 times slower.
Right.
So we did a concept where we call it the Citrix data, or the U drive for us. And so what we did is we started getting rid of the functionality where they could map their local drives or their network drives that were on the edge and force them to stay within the data center, and then have their PCs map something called the U drive. So what they did now is if they save an Excel spreadsheet, whatever, it would be, we kind of force them to save it to inside a file share in the data center called the Citrix. We redirect that data for them on the server. So if they think, oh, I put it on the desktop, well, we redirect it to the U drive folder, and it's not lost, because we load balance, depending on the app, could be 10 servers, could be 3. Once we started getting that buy-in that it was okay, that the U drive is no different than their local P drive, and so on, and that the Excel spreadsheet, but just taking the person and say, all right, sometimes I had to force them, do it your way. How long did it take? Now save the same data on the U drive. How long did it take? Yeah, but now it's here on the U drive. We'll drag and copy it, because Citrix is a lousy file transfer protocol. Just doesn't do it well.
Okay.
So that's why don't allow Citrix to do the file transfer. Let Microsoft or some other product, ShareFile, something else, do the file transfer and syncing. And so that's a hurdle we still tackle as we move app, is how to teach people to do business differently. And back to human behavior, some people kick and scream and yell and say, no, I got to have it on right here, because they want to hug it or whatever.
Right.
And I know this isn't necessarily in your realm, so we'll just touch on it a little bit to kind of fill out the full workspace picture there. Because I spoke with the other Bob in your IT shop.
Bob too.
Bob too. Double Vision, right? Cooper Vision.
Yep.
About your guys' use of share file content collaboration and endpoint management. Now, he mentioned that the first use case for bringing on endpoint management, so I'm assuming that U drive is actually the connector for endpoint management, the endpoint management connector, or is that an actual file share? Because that's what he mentioned.
U drive is really, it's a file share.
Yeah, yeah. Are you, so he had brought up a whole point where you guys have actually a large usage of Citrix content collaboration.
Yes.
Including which he mentioned, which I'll prep for you in case you didn't know, is their finance department. So they rolled out Citrix content collaboration and for connectors for network drives. And then their finance department just found the feedback and approval workflow features in content collaboration and just went on their own and built their own workflows and everything's running happily, and they just the IT department just got a good report, like, hey, we love this, thank you. And they're like, oh, well,
We didn't do anything.
great,
Right,
perfect.
we enabled it. Right?
Yeah, so he was really happy about that. So, I'll let you continue off where you are. I wanted to throw that in there.
No,
Yeah.
and on the MDM piece of the phone. So
Yeah.
the other thing is that we have applications we get where some of these applications you see here on the screen, manager has a function where they have to do some type of approval of a change order, or whatever.
Right.
And the problem is they're not always sitting at their desk, and they're not timed or planned. So some of the things by going with the Workspace Solution using Zen Mobile, which now that's not what it's called, right?
Endpoint management, yes.
Endpoint management.
Yeah.
Was some of these apps we could then leverage our Citrix Zen app infrastructure and publish that to the phone.
Right.
And then we use the MDM basically to manage the phones, so we can have control of devices that we purchase and give to our employees. But we also have a large contracting staff that comes in and they bring their phones and their devices. So it gave us a way so we could also manage them to make sure, intellectual property is protected, things of that nature. And give them access to our mail system and so on. And Citrix gives us that ability to do that. Now, it's not my forte. I have a smarter guy that takes care of that.
Right, right.
He just couldn't make it.
Yeah, that's the idea of the workspace, right? There's so much involved with it, and that was the next point. You knew where I was heading with that. I was going to pull out the fact that you guys are using MDM to manage the endpoints, and then MAM for those other use cases like contractors or external users who need access. So let's go back to the data center. So tell us more about the data centers and how you have them set up worldwide.
Yeah, I see a couple of different zones likely there. Was it always that way, or did you kind of consolidate to a few here across the continents?
So once we decided that we were going to bring everything to the data center, so we have 3 data centers, EMEA, Asia Pac, and then the US. The US is the main data center where the majority of our applications are coming to, but we also have these smaller data centers. For geographic reasons, the apps need to be there.
Right.
And on those sites, right now there are separate 715 sites. The EMEA and the Asia Pac are doing a mix of virtual desktops and some Zen app. In the US, we have 2 farms, one totally for applications, the other for desktops. And without getting into it, there was reasons to do it that way, to keep it separate, 2 different IT teams, management structure, and so on. It was an easier way to deal with that. Plus, it gave us our own DR. So if somebody screwed up the Zen app site and it was down, the Zen desktop piece did the same thing, right?
Right.
So that kind of, we use NetScalers or access data control.
ADCs.
Right?
I know. Just call them NetScalers.
The NetScalers with global load balancing to get there. And the reason we went with that, and we got a lot of help with, like I said, to be successful with a partner that helped us get to that point. A couple things we wanted. We wanted the user experience when a user logs in and launches receiver, that they see that right away.
Right.
So the idea of putting storefront and the NetScalers in each region is so when they log in, they instantly saw, oh, okay, there's my apps. They didn't have to wait for latency because I can't fix this, speed of light, and didn't want to home run everything to the storefront in the US where most of the apps are. So that was actually a nice win because people said, oh, well, that was pretty fast. Look at all my apps.
Right.
And the other nice thing about it with the global load balancing is if they did select an app, and if the app happens to be housed in the US, the NetScaler did a great job saying, oh, you don't want to go this route. I'm going to send that token with your authentication over here, and now launch your app. And if they launch a VDI, and it happens to be in the Asia warehouse, the same thing. If they hit the US storefront, they would have been moved automatically. So we did that also because we wanted to get to a point where if we had certain applications that were going to be in all 3 regions, that we'd get the users to the closest farm.
Yep.
With that concept, we did it too because we were thinking about moving the control plane, the data controllers and so on, eventually to the cloud and go to a zone model versus that. But again, you have to start somewhere.
Right.
So
Sure.
that was the method.
Any Any SaaS applications like any Salesforces or Workdays or O365, OWA, something like that you guys are running as well?
All of those.
All of the things.
So, and that was a problem for us as well, because we're different OSs, different countries, different regions, and dealing with the SaaS, language, keyboard, and all this stuff. So one of the things we did, though, in our journey is we made a decision that we were no longer going to allow users to go to the SaaS apps from their local devices. We weren't ready to do embedded browsers or smart browsing or any of that. So basically, we build pools of Citrix and app servers, and we harden the browser there and publish the browser kind of in a kiosk mode. So like our expense system. It's a SaaS app. ServiceNow is another SaaS app. And the idea is to the end user, oh, ServiceNow is an app now versus, oh, I got to go to my browser, drill down, pull the URL, log in again, and so on. It also helped us leverage some of the built-in features so we could do a single sign-on experience.
Right.
Not necessarily single sign-on, but give them that look and feel.
Right.
So there's quite a few SaaS apps that we now do using virtual app.
Great.
I think that was one of the things that we had talked about for kind of looking forward, especially with some of the announcements at the keynote, like the ability to have that, the embedded Chromium-based browser where you still have all those controls, like you can prevent cut, copy, paste, and the screen capture prevention. So that would be potentially an alternative for the SaaS apps going forward, do you think?
That or the micro app thing that you just announced.
Yeah, sure.
Where, like in ServiceNow, right now we're publishing the full ServiceNow catalog, right? And the user still has to navigate, but all they want to do is create a ticket. The end users don't need that whole screen. So micro app might be a better fit for
Right.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, and Jacob, that's perfect. It leads us right into where we're heading next. Is what's your vision for the future at Cooper Vision?
Well, as you say, we're still working our way to just getting into our own data center model, right? Virtualizing all the apps. But the next step is we're looking to do is virtualize the control planes. Move our Zen mobile to the cloud, get our Zen app, Zen desktop to the cloud. We're already leveraging ShareFile, and that's already a cloud-based product.
Right.
So the next step is to get what I call the control planes all out there. We'll still use our NetScalers and Storefront on-prem for us to digest the cloud model and get comfortable with that. And so that's, I say in the immediate future, that's the next step.
Right.
And then finally there, then we're also changing our DR model. We were leasing a data center, right? And putting hardware in it, and we're now looking to go to the cloud for DR.
Right.
And move workloads there. And it's kind of the beginning for us to put real workloads in. So we'll first do the DR stuff, say, that's okay, that didn't hurt too bad. And then we're going to go right behind it and put some of the VDAs could go out in the cloud, either Azure, AWS.
Right, and I think that's definitely a common scenario that we hear a lot of is when I want to first put that first foot into public cloud, things that I don't necessarily use all the time, like DR, are a fairly easy target.
Yeah, and then additionally is the endpoint management to the cloud with the transition service from Citrix, where we can transition you from on-prem to the cloud without the users having to re-enroll. So we've had a lot of success and a lot of positive feedback about that. And then from the keynote, like, what are you excited about? I know it's like that's all the new crazy stuff, but what are you excited about for the future? I mean, you mentioned micro apps.
Well, the micro app was something that was exciting just based on the pocket of SaaS apps that we have, and the SaaS apps are growing. Everybody is going to, well, we can give you a cloud offering of something that you put on-prem now, right?
Right.
So the micro app was exciting. But on the other hand, for me, when I go to listen to keynote, you hit it on the head. There's so much coming out, and they're talking so much of stuff. I'm still going, all right, I still have to do this.
Right.
And so I'm still kind of focusing on little steps, not the big steps in the keynote. So
Yeah.
even though I'm listening, I was exciting about the future, I'm still making sure is that they're not taking something away.
Right, right.
And then, I guess from your experience in this journey, if you were speaking to somebody, maybe somebody in the room here is on that same journey or about to step foot into that same journey, what would your tips and tricks be? What would your shortcut? Well, not shortcuts, but tips and tricks.
Well, I kind of said in the beginning is that user perception is the biggest battle in the journey, regardless of the technology. And so put the effort into the user perception piece first. Make sure you do your due diligence and getting them to understand what you're going to do, why we're doing it, and it's going to be okay. Because I've found if we do not put the effort there, which I've done and failed there, it becomes a struggle. Even though things are successfully moving, user perception is going to kill me because the director then stands and tap dances on me and saying, I got this phone call. So that would be my first tip, is make sure you put the effort into the user perception in your planning. You know, it's easy to get very into the weeds and the technical and moving these pieces and all that, but you have to deal with human behavior. The other thing is, again, there isn't an app that exists today that can't be virtualized.
Okay.
And so that's more of an attitude, right? Have the attitude that, I can't move that one. I guess we live with this technical debt. I can't virtualize it. Don't give up. Again, you might still say, is it worth it for 5 users to spend this much money to virtualize it? You might just say, let's let it die on the vine. So I'm not saying you have to move everything.
Right.
But the attitude is the difference. So those are the other tips. And then the last one is don't try to be a hero all by yourself. Get help.
Yeah. Great. All right. With that, I think we'll wrap it up and see if you guys have any questions, please come up to the mic and we'll answer them. Any questions? Yes. Got one.
One question.
I need a mic, but
Yeah.
Oh, no, you do. We want to get it recorded.
if I understood the workspace messaging, it's not just for traditional Citrix delivered apps, right? It's intended to be across all endpoints or
Correct.
all Windows endpoints?
Yes. Yeah. All endpoints. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you see that as a fit if it's not a Citrix delivered app, or would you see that as maybe partial user base, or what's the thought there?
So I do think it will be a fit. Right now, because of just doing things the old-fashioned way, everybody thinks it's an app, and it has to go on a PC, and so you either got to virtualize it or you put it on a VDI. But I do see eventually that my Zen desktop will shrink, because, for example, why am I building pools of servers to publish a SaaS app if I don't have to?
Right.
That's an example.
Yeah, and I think that covers a lot of bases, right? There's the SaaS apps that have nothing at all to do with a Windows OS or an OS at all, right? It's about a browser, and if you can put that in front of them in a very efficient manner, then there's that piece. Then there's the apps that are still, maybe they're installed on a local machine. So we did talk a little bit about the local app access, and then for the rest of them, it's that browser that still allows you to policy those things out, right? So you still have your content and collaboration, your old share file in the workspace. You still have your apps and desktops, and then these new things that cover the base of the browser, that cover the base of the micro, quick, I need to put in a ticket, I need to approve an expense, whatever it is. So it covers the whole gamut, even if, still bringing in those legacy.
So one of the things that excites us about the future is, I call it your dashboard. So when you go to the workspace in the cloud and talking about those apps that may not necessarily be a zip, the thing we see is if you log in and you're a distribution operator in Belgium and you log in, we're now going to give you that dashboard. I'll call it the dashboard with share file and your micro apps or your SaaS apps here. They're not there. And then the Zen apps. But the idea is is be able to deliver all the apps in a single pane of glass, so to speak, using different ways to deliver it. But to the end user, they're saying, I'm going to
Do work.
do work.
Right.
Yeah, the catchphrase, do work. So that's part of why we rebranded the storefront and tried to give that look, because we wanted to teach people, you go to receiver. don't go to the desktop. And that was also to set to the next step. So when we do go to that type of single pane of glass for work, they're already used to that store model.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And they don't care how it's delivered. They don't care. They just want it delivered.
They just want it to work, right? And I think that, and what I hear a lot from customers is that it abstracts that delivery away from the end user, right? So you can start to change that end user or the way that it's delivered versus the SaaS app versus a published browser, or with the access control features that we were talking about. And the end user doesn't really know the difference, and they're just still going to the same place, using the same behavior to do the same work that they've always done. Yeah, great. Any other questions, guys? All right. Well, that wraps it up. We'll stick around to answer any questions if you want to ask one-off questions. And otherwise, thank you. Actually, the last thing I'll say, I don't really have any slide for it, is if you rate us on your app, rate the session. I'm Josh and Jacob, Bob, and thank you guys for joining us. And we'll see you tonight at the party.